we don't let our guard down.
The threats coming into the nation are kind of growing. They're using bomb-wielding drones.
The U.S. Border Patrol is trained and prepared to meet the cartel.
What was the peak of your getaway?
It is sort of like a cat and mouse game, but I'm going to say we're winning now. What gets out quick? Illegal aliens, they know that if they come in, they're going to get apprehended and then sent back to their country.
One of the things that they're talking about is finishing this wall, this being kind of stabilized by chicken wire.
We will accept nothing less than operational control of the border. It's a huge success. We're not done, but we're prepared to fight the enemy.
Hey, I'm Allie Bradley with NewsNation, and we're here in the Del Rio sector where we had a conversation exclusively with the acting Del Rio sector chief, Milton Moreno. Now, the Del Rio sector has been through the ringer over the last 4 years. They've essentially dealt with the epitome of the crisis, from nearly 16,000 migrants from Haiti underneath the bridge here in Del Rio to the Uvalde shooting where Border Patrol responded. And then again in 2023, where they were basically ground zero for the massive surge where we saw a record-breaking number of migrants. Now in the Del Rio sector, they're only seeing about an average of 25 crossings a day. But the chief says they're working to get full operational control, which means zero crossings. Here's how. So, Chief, when it comes to this sector, we looked at some numbers. You guys are only averaging about 25 encounters or apprehensions a day right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, compare that to there were 16,000 people under the bridge in this same sector at the start of the Biden administration. What does that drop in numbers mean to you, and what do you attribute it to?
Well, there are several factors. The main being we're able to do our job. Illegal aliens who cross know that they're going to get detected, apprehended, processed, and probably sent back to their country. The other thing is we coordinated and always worked well with the government of Mexico. They help out with repatriations, accepting some of those demographics who are not necessarily sent back to their home country, and then working with the local partners from state, local, and county law enforcement agencies.
Have they been pretty responsive and pretty helpful? Because some counties, you know, they kind of try to say, oh, immigration is not our space. Have the local sheriffs and police and things like that been supportive of your efforts here?
They've always been supportive, and even though it's not an immigration, it affects our community. So what we try to do is keep and maintain security throughout the border, and more than anything in our communities.
Now, when it comes to the manpower that you guys have brought down here, because a lot of agents were surged to this area over the last 4 years, are any of those agents going to be leaving the Del Rio sector, put somewhere else, or further in the interior to help with ICE efforts? Or what do you expect to see with kind of, you have a lot of agents down here right now because of the problem being so big in the Del Rio sector, which includes Eagle Pass. Mm-hmm. Can we expect any of those agents to be moved out of this sector?
Well, right now our focus is on operational control of the border. Now, if that call comes in, then we may be able to assist or modify, adjust, but obviously those orders will come from our headquarters in Washington, D.C. But for now, working with TMD, with Texas DPS, with Department of Defense assets, and with our agents here, we are getting closer to our goal of achieving 100% operational control of the border.
How do you get to zero crossings? How do you get to that point? I mean, you guys exist because you've always seen people try to come into the country. You've been around for 100 years because these numbers are more so what we historically have seen. So how do you get that to zero?
We'll continue with our efforts, like I mentioned, with our other agencies, federal, state, and local, coordinating with the government of Mexico. And right now, Sedena and Guardia Nacional have an additional 10,000 soldiers on the Mexican side, from Matamoros all the way down to Tijuana. I'm going to say a good 1,500 to 1,600 of them I'm here between Ciudad Acuña and Piedras Negras. So that's helped out a lot. Again, we are looking to deter and prevent those crossings, and at the same time, with our enforcement posture here along the river on the U.S. side, coordinating with Department of Defense, with Texas National Guard, with state, local, and other federal agencies, we're going to get there.
Okay, so you have about 1,600 Mexican military for about 100 miles swath is about how
Correct.
Far this is, as crow flies, if you will. Have they been helpful with that more permanent posture? I mean, they weren't there before. You know, I've
Correct.
been down here a lot, and they weren't. Now they kind of have little camps set up. They've got a more high visibility posture. Has that been helpful? And we talked with Deputy Patrol Agent in charge in Eagle Pass, Rios, and he was telling us that you guys are kind of coordinating together, but
Correct.
it's kind of in a reactive posture. Is there any conversation about streamlining communications if they do have a group that's about to cross, that you can communicate with them more effectively, or is that kind of just separate countries? You're dealing with their international kind of liaison on that side?
No, so we do have a liaison, and again, there's daily communication. It could always be improved, but has it helped? Absolutely, it has. That's one of the contributing factors to our traffic, kind of with seeing that significant decrease, is having our counterparts on the Mexican side do the same thing, deter, patrol, and apprehend and send back to those illegal aliens to their native countries.
So with Mexico, obviously the trust issues is something we've seen historically with the country. Do you trust Mexico to do its part, and would you be open to having some kind of walkie-talkie communication with them, or having access to each other's kind of regular communication if there was something in place?
So the trust is there, and obviously there's certain information, classified information, that can be shared with anyone outside our agency. But at the same time, we work well with them. They have helped out. They have assisted a lot. As an example, when we had the mass migration down in Eagle Pass in December of 23, they were a huge partner, and they were one of the reasons why we were able to laterally decompress and make some of those repatriations into their country.
Now, when it comes to the fortification of this section of the border, we just saw the Trump administration basically approved a contract to build 7 more miles of wall that's going in the Rio Grande Valley. We have seen the wall here, which, you know, it's kind of braced up by chicken wire. Is there any communication about expanding and fixing the wall here, and then also finishing the wall in the Eagle Pass area? I know you have a lot of private property that you're dealing with out there. What does that look like?
So the communication is there, but headquarters has the ultimate say, and right now they're prioritizing those areas with a high traffic area, and this is not one of them at the moment. But again, that discussion is still being had, and we are requesting to get additional barrier wall. But at the moment, nothing for Del Rio sector.
Okay. Now, when we were on our ride along with Secretary Nome over the weekend, we had gotten word that there was another assault on an agent where an illegal immigrant was kind of scuffling with that agent, got the baton, ran back to Mexico, things like that had happened. She said that agents are absolutely in more danger right now because of the desperation of cartels. Do you agree? And what kind of measures are you taking to make sure your agents are safe and to make sure that they're, you know, able to do what they need to do if it comes down to it?
So right after the administration came in and gave us the authority to continue to enforce our laws, we no longer have what we call the give up traffic, the ones that are literally giving themselves up. Everything that we work now is active traffic, actively trying to get away. So the moment you get hands on, they're going to be more resistant. Some will push and even fight. So yes, we did see an increase in agent assaults over the last 3 or 4 weeks now. And then as far as what we rely on is what we've always done in the Border Patrol, what we get taught at the Border Patrol Academy, and then every quarter our agents continue to train on use of force, on deadly force when required. But again, we don't let our guard down because traffic has decreased or traffic was given up. We continue with our mindset of securing the border and always with our guard up.
Now, when you talk about what you guys call good traffic, are you seeing more people trying to evade, more people being smuggled? Are you seeing more drugs coming into the sector?
We haven't seen the contraband, but again, even though the traffic is lower in numbers, it's all active traffic that is actively trying to get away. Numbers are lower, but at the same time, we get to focus more. And with the recent closure of Firefly, just about all our agents are out in the field patrolling, doing enforcement type work. So we continue to focus. There's plenty of work to be done. We continue to target and work with our intelligence unit to go after those transnational criminal organizations.
Going back to the agents' assaults really quick, how much of an uptick would you say, and compared to the last 4 years, would you say you're seeing right now when it comes to the assaults?
I don't have the exact number, but I'll get it for you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, you mentioned Firefly. Of course, we know that closed last week. We know that several facilities across the southern border are closing. But because of those processing centers, they surge these border processing coordinators down here. From what I understand, they don't necessarily have arrest authority. can they be used to help supplement you as a force multiplier, or what will be done with those individuals, if you know?
Well, we still have some traffic, and their main focus is to process those illegal aliens and freeing up some of our green shirts back out to the field. So traffic is not the way it was in December of 23 or in the early part of 24, but yet there's still work for them to do here.
Now, when it comes to your posture, you guys have kind of made an about face as well. Instead of kind of laying up and waiting for people to cross, you're taking this more high visibility stance down here in the sector. Can you give an example of that that's working? I know the Vega is a highly trafficked area in the past. What does that look like now, and how are you utilizing that posture to kind of prevent crossings in the first place?
Well, again, we look to shut down high traffic areas and put a lot of emphasis on that. And as traffic starts to diminish, we have to remain flexible. It is sort of like a cat and mouse game, but I'm going to say we're winning now with our the amount of agents we had on the field doing enforcement type work, to include riverine patrol. We have our air assets along with TMD and DOD. And again, the coordination piece with our federal, state, and local is still there. And it's always 100% to prevent crossings and secure our nation.
Now, Chief, you've obviously been with the patrol for quite a while. What is, when we say historically, we're going back to numbers that, you know, we used to see. And I was asking my source, I'm like, are you messing with me? These are so low. And he said, no, this is what it's supposed to be. What is the difference that you see from, say, when those numbers were what they were before to now where they are today? Is there a difference in posture and resources and response?
Well, I mean, as far as the posture, the majority, like I mentioned earlier, the majority of our agents, our assets are out in the field conducting law enforcement type work, and that's what we want.
And that's what they were before this 4 years. That was
correct.
That was customary.
Correct.
It was not what we saw over the last 4 years.
That is correct. In addition to that, being able to deliver a consequence. Not only are we doing our job, but we're delivering a consequence. Word gets out quick. Illegal aliens, word carries fast, and they know that if they come in, they're going to get apprehended and then sent back to their country. That's why a lot of them choose not to take on that journey anymore. And some that are being repatriated into the interior of Mexico choose not to come back. They go on their journey back home. Whereas before, when we voluntarily return or repatriate someone to the same area, you'll see them back the next day. That's not the case anymore. They're being flown back or driven out to the interior of Mexico, if not their native country, and they're not coming back.
Giving them a farther way to walk and not going through the same kind of plaza buses and things
correct.
Like that, right? Pay them once, you get 3 tries. So no, you're going to have to go down to Laredo and make a deal with that guy this time. It's going to be tougher. You
take that part out of the equation, makes it tougher for them, and a lot of them don't have the monetary funds, so they choose to go back home.
Interesting. Now, Chief, for 4 years, we sat down here and we said they need manpower, they need help, they're not able to do their jobs. What do you need now?
Well, it's still a combination, and again, I'll tell you, I'll steal a page from our old strategy of manpower, technology, and infrastructure. That's still the case. Now, in last fall, we did get an enhancement of agents of about 205, but at the same time, we talked about the barrier, the wall. We still need some infrastructure, and some of the outdated technology needs to be refreshed.
What would you say the most successful thing the Trump administration has done? I know they haven't implemented any new laws. They just kind of are allowing you to enforce the law that was on the book. What would you say has been the most successful move they've made?
The main is being able to do our job and enforce immigration laws.
All right. Anything else you want to add, sir, for our viewers? I didn't touch on. I think we ran the gamut a little bit with you.
No, I'm going to say things are looking the way they should. Our border is secure, and that includes the interior of the country and our communities.
I know that the Rio Grande has unfortunately been a space where that has been one of the biggest issues, is people trying to cross and drowning.
No, so that's always a concern, not just for the illegal aliens, but for our agents. And because the traffic is so low, we haven't seen as many. In FY24, we did have 125 illegal or migrant deaths, and a good portion of those, I would say 90% of them, were drownings on the river. The majority down in Eagle Pass by Shelby Park.
Okay. Now, Shelby Park, you guys have obviously gotten access back into Shelby Park, which is part of your sector. What does that mean to you? How has that helped? Or is that even necessary at this point, because it's essentially shut down there too?
No, it was always the case, and I know we had to request access into Shelby Park, but we've always had it. Now, going in there and working with our partner, it's just, it makes it that much better, that much fluent to coordinate. And again, we're working with TMD. We've deputized over 400 other soldiers and continue to deliver some of that Title 8 training to them. So again, it's more manpower for us. We duplicate that manpower in the field, and at the same time, it's been working out well. Look at the dramatic increase in crossings and apprehensions.
How has DOD been beneficial or supplemental? I mean, they surged thousands. I know they were already down here under the Biden administration as well, carried over from the Trump administration, but they brought even more down here. Are they necessary? How are they helping?
No, yeah, they are absolutely necessary, and we think, okay, yeah, the Rio sector has 1,700 agents and got recently approved for another 200. We still have gaps along our 228 miles of river,
so do
of
you
international
want to be shoulder
boundaries.
to shoulder? Is that the goal? Just stay, you know?
No, we don't necessarily have to be shoulder to shoulder, but at the same time, like I can look upwards and another quarter mile up to a half a mile, and I don't see anyone else. So having that additional, whether it's a soldier, an agent, whoever it may be, we can continue to coordinate it and keep it secure.
What was the most frustrating thing for you over the last 4 years? If there's anything you want to speak about that you would have changed, what would be the number one thing?
Well, frustrating to see the amount of folks that were getting away. I know we had a lot of people that were give-ups, and we were processing a lot of those family units. But my thing was, we didn't have 100% accountability as to who was getting away and actually came into the interior of the country. So it's concerning to us, knowing that they're somewhere in the U.S. that they should have never entered this country.
Did you have a lot of gotaways? Did you deal with that a lot? Because I saw a lot of groups, obviously, and we know the task saturation kind of tactics by the cartels. So we'd see these huge family groups come over, but then they're sending nefarious people through the holes, right? What was the, I guess, peak of your gotaways? What did you notice, and were there a lot of them?
I'm going to say in 2022, when we had 480 apprehensions, that was also our peak for gotaways, and that number was in the thousands. So again, it is concerning to us.
How do you find them now, Chief? Gosh, I guess that's up to ICE, huh? Have any of your guys gone into the interior to supplement ICE on their operations at this point?
No, we have not. But again, ICE is a critical and a very good partner with us. And again, we'll stand at the ready if the call ever comes in. But right now, we will focus on 100% accountability of the border. Any
plans to do what they were doing over in El Centro, where they were going into Bakersfield and doing kind of their own border patrol ops and arresting for state crimes? Do you guys have any of those on the books?
No, right now we focus on the immediate border. But again, if the call comes and if it's absolutely necessary, then we'll abide.
Yep, if it has a nexus to the border, you can go anywhere, right? Something
Correct.
Americans don't really understand.
That is correct.
Thank you so much, Chief. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We really do. Thank you for the insight. It was valuable.
Of course, anytime.
Obviously, they're working hard to secure this sector and make sure that nobody crosses. But one of the things that they're talking about is finishing this wall. This is a Trump wall. And as you can see right here behind us, this black iron fence was essentially put up by the Bush administration. So right now, it's being kind of stabilized by chicken wire. The sheriff down here, he's a Democrat. He even wants this wall finished because he says it keeps his community and in turn, the nation safe. Moreno says, though, that right now there are no immediate plans to restart construction of this wall. However, they are talking about what needs to be done here. We also talked with the chief of Border Patrol, Mike Banks, who tells us some of the importance of this infrastructure is to get it down to zero crossings. The Trump administration doesn't want a single person coming into the United States illegally. So not only is this wall going to be expanding, but we're also going to see that controversial buoy barrier expanding. You remember that constant fight between Texas and the federal government? Well, now that barrier is going to be stretching all the way down to the Rio Grande Valley. The chief stressing the importance of having this very high visibility posture and having this infrastructure in place to counter cartel activity, because not only is it a threat to Border Patrol, but the threats coming into the nation are kind of growing. The chief saying they're using bomb-wielding drones. They're doing different things right now because they're desperate, because they're not making that $13 billion a year anymore by moving people into the country illegally. The chief breaks it all down for us. 50 plus days in the job. What do you think is the biggest difference from when you were border czar down here in Texas to now being in your position as the Border Patrol chief. What are you seeing as the biggest difference, sir?
So I think the biggest difference is having an administration that is allowing Border Patrol agents to actually enforce the law. You know, we didn't need new laws on the books in order to secure the border. We just needed an administration that was allowed to let Border Patrol agents do what Border Patrol agents know how to do, and that is secure the border.
Now, when it comes to securing that border, obviously things look very different, and the focus is a lot more on the interior right now. Something that you guys aren't necessarily involved with, but you know a lot about, the CBP Home app. It used to be CBP One, something that you saw a lot of during the 4 years under the Biden administration that Border Patrol saw. How is that app? Do you know the successes there? DHS Secretary Noem had said that that it's being used by the hundreds. Where do you see it being successful, and are you seeing people using that, or what kind of feedback are you getting on the CBP Home app for self-deportations?
So we are seeing people use it, right? And I think what you're going to see is those numbers increase as people understand that they can successfully return back to their country and avoid prosecution, and then be able to reapply at a later time to come back into the country legally. And so it is one of the many options we have on the table that is going to help drive down those numbers. You got to remember, the key thing to legal immigration is the ability to detect, apprehend, and then provide that consequence. And right now, with the numbers you're seeing, we're getting our agents out into the field. You're seeing us with the probability of detection much greater than it's ever been, and then you add in the probability of apprehension, which is extremely high, and the fact that you will be prosecuted and are returned and removed from the country. Those consequences are driving those numbers down. So it's a combination of everything, right? It's utilizing all the available tools we have, and we're going to create additional tools such as CBP Home in order to help continue driving down those numbers.
And you're talking about driving down the numbers, but the president obviously wants zero crossings down here in the Del Rio sector. I mean, this month, for the first 2 weeks, we were only averaging 25 crossings across 120 miles or so down here in this sector. But how do you get that to zero? I talked with the acting chief the other day, and he kind of told me broadly they're working with partners. What can you tell me specifically about efforts to get that to zero and what that looks like? Obviously, Border Patrol has always had encounters. That's why you guys have existed for 100 years. So how do you get that number to zero, Chief?
Well, first I want to talk about a statement you just made. You know, you and I have been down there, both when I was with the state of Texas, with the Border Patrol prior to that, and now back again with the Border Patrol. And we're talking about days where we had upwards of 5, 6, even 7,000 crossing days in that exact very location. And I just want your viewers to understand, 7,000 a day to 25 a day. That's huge amount of success. But you're absolutely right. We will accept nothing less than operational control of the border, which means nothing crosses. And if it does cross, it is absolutely apprehended, a consequence is provided, and they're removed. And we get there in a couple of ways. First, the U.S. Border Patrol is rebuilding its resources. The Biden administration destroyed the Border Patrol's resources. They took the money out of anything enforcement and dumped it into everything non-enforcement. So as we're starting to build that back up under the Trump administration, and with leadership like we have and a strong secretary like Secretary Noem, what we're doing is as we build back up our resources, we're utilizing all available resources. We're using DOD, we're using Texas National Guard, we're using ATF, FBI. If you are a federal law enforcement officer, you are some way involved in the mission of securing the border right now. And as we build back up our resources and get the Border Patrol strong enough to hold down the border by itself, you'll see us start dialing back on those additional resources. But now is not the time to dial back on anything. Now is the time to stay on the gas and keep pushing until we get that operational control of the border.
Now, when it comes to that operational control, obviously gotaways is something, and that's a real reason why Border Patrol is down there, is to go after the ones that don't want to be caught. We're not seeing groups of people really self-surrendering right now. I just talked with the sheriff in Terrell County, who of course is former Border Patrol as well, and he said unfortunately they've had a lot of camera hits that they have nothing to show for it. They do have some gotaways in that sector. He also said that they're learning kind of to avoid their cameras. Can you speak to that, and can you tell me what the current gotaway count is looking like across the southern border?
So I can tell you that our gotaway numbers are down dramatically. You're talking from thousands a day to an average of about 101 a day. And so once again, 101 a day is still not acceptable. We're going to continue driving forward, and we will get operational control of the border. And a lot of things we're doing to assist with that is DOD is bringing in resources. The resources DOD is bringing in is helping us with the detection and then leading us to the location where the gotaways are trying, or the people are trying to get away, for the apprehension. If you saw just the other day, the U.S. Navy is being put into border security missions defending the coast, because we understand that as we put more and more pressure on the border and we get that border under control, that traffic is going to want to go somewhere. And so we're already preparing for anything that might get pushed out to the maritime, and we're utilizing even the United States Navy and Coast Guard to help us address those maritime threats. So we're going to continue adding resources, as I said. We're going to continue adding technology and giving us the ability to see what we haven't been able to see. You got to remember that under the previous administration, agents couldn't get out there and patrol, and so it was wide open. But to decrease our gotaways from thousands a day into the hundreds a day, or less than 100 a day on most days, it's a huge success. But again, we're not done. We're going to continue building up those resources in the form of manpower, technology, continue building border wall, border infrastructure, placing buoy barriers in the river. We're going to continue doing everything we can to impede the ability to cross illegally into the country, and then increase the probability of detection and apprehension if you do make it into the country.
Are there plans, Chief, to put the buoy barrier anywhere then besides where they are in the Shelby Park area in Eagle Pass? Are we looking at other parts of the river that might be an opportunity for you guys to use as a deterrence tactic?
Buoy barriers will absolutely be a part of our technology and our infrastructure approach to securing the border under my term as the Chief of the Border Patrol.
Obviously, that was something that you were kind of spearheading under your time as the borders are here in Texas. So we'll expect to see some of that, and even in the Rio Grande Valley. Would that be somewhere where we could see it?
Absolutely. I want to be very clear that buoy barrier was something that under the previous Trump administration, the Border Patrol was moving very heavily toward. The Border Patrol helped design and test and evaluate those buoys to get them to the condition they were in as far as the safety and the ability to be effective. Under the Biden administration, they halted that, considering it part of any type of infrastructure. And so this was something the Border Patrol had clearly wanted to use and was preparing to use. And now we're back to being able to use that, because once again, we've got an administration that understands that the Border Patrol knows how to secure the border, and they're allowing us to go out and do that.
Now, you talk about resources coming down here. Obviously, sources down here tell me, Chief, that some of that posture not pulling back is because it's not if but when the cartel is going to make some kind of move. I mean, right now, they were making $13 billion a year moving people into the country under the Biden administration, according to Congress. There's no way they're making that money right now when you're only seeing 100 gotaways and you're seeing 25 people cross in this sector that used to see thousands. So is that accurate? Do you anticipate the cartel to make a move, and what kind of move do you think they might make?
And so you're absolutely right? We're impacting the cartel's ability to make billions of dollars, right? And so at what point do they decide that they're ready to push? I can tell you this. Border Patrol is some of the most highly trained, most professional law enforcement agency in the country, and we stand ready to defend the borders, and we're not going to hold back. We're not going to surrender. We will get this border. We will get operational control of the United States border. Absolutely.
Now, Chief, does it concern you at all? There's been talks of Governor Abbott kind of pulling back, scaling back Operation Lone Star a little bit. I know some of the DPS troopers have even kind of went a little more into the interior enforcement. They do still have over 1,000 troopers down here, but does that concern you at all, that they're kind of adjusting their posture a little bit? Do you think that they need to remain in place, or do you think that the governor's move is adequate for what you're seeing right now?
So I've seen nothing to suggest that Texas is pulling back, nor have I been told anything to the contrary. I will tell you, actually, to the contrary, we've deputized over 1,000 Texas National Guard with limited Title VIII authority, and they are working alongside of Border Patrol, not only on the line, but in logistics efforts. They are inside of our sectors, working hand in hand with us. We are lockstep with Texas and the rest of the country in securing the border, and I have no reason to believe that Texas has or is currently planning any type of drawdown.
And it's going back to kind of the cartel behavior, if I can. I want to touch on the drones. Obviously, I've reported on bomb-wielding drones. We've had intel that shows that is something that they're utilizing against their own, either rival cartels, things like that. Is there a concern that they would be utilizing those drones against the United States? And how do you counter those drones? I mean, I've also reported that they kind of have abilities to scramble our drones. Sources say that they're using DJI, which is better than what we have the capabilities to use because it's a Chinese company. Is there a concern there, and how do we counter those drones?
And so, without getting too in-depth into our technology, we do have the technology available to counter drones, and we are deploying more of that technology. And yes, you're right, we have seen, cartel on cartel violence that involves drones. And so we watch what they do to each other and prepare, we prepare and train to be ready to fight the enemy on any ground. And so we're prepared to train, or we're prepared to fight the enemy. Let me redo that.
Are you legitimately concerned that that could happen? I mean, the old adage is they stay over there and we stay over here. And it's kind of this agreement, if you will, that they're not going to breach that barrier, so to speak, because that would ruin their opportunities to continue to work. Is there a legitimate concern that they could do that?
So there's always going to be concern that violence will spill over into the United States from the cartels. But I can tell you the U.S. Border Patrol is trained and prepared to meet the cartel face-to-face anywhere they attempt to cross our border or bring violence into our country.
Okay, let's get into some Border Patrol outside of BORTAC. Obviously, we've seen some agents that are more at the northern border or maybe at some more interior stations, if you will, that have been assisting with ICE in some of these deportation efforts. Is there any talk about any of the surge of agents that were moved to the southern border to help in interior enforcements there with those deportation efforts?
So first and foremost, the Border Patrol's job is to gain operational control of that border. That is my number one priority. So we're always going to assist our partners when they need help, whether it be with resources, whether that be manpower, technology. But my number one priority, and the number one priority of this administration, is that we get the border shut down first. We're not going to give up 10 yards on every play so that the bodies can get north. And so Border Patrol's focus is to control the international boundary to ensure no one's coming into the country, and those that do make it are apprehended and given a consequence. And so we're going to focus on operation control of the border, let ICE focus on the interior, but we will always be there to assist our partners should they need the help.
Now, when it comes to those that have crossed over the last 4 years, obviously you're aware of Tren de Aragua. What kind of concern comes with that group from what you know being down here, from what you know in the patrol and now where you're at today? What kind of concerns are there with that group? And is that something that we need to be worried about coming across the border as a getaway? Are these now kind of terrorist organizations crossing the border? What concern is there, if any?
So Tren de Aragua is an extremely violent gang that originated in prison. And anytime we have gang members illegally entering our country, we should absolutely be concerned. And they're violent. They're extremely violent. They know no limits. They've gone into locations in Colorado and other places and taken it over. You yourself have reported on it numerous times. And so, once again, I don't want anyone coming into the country illegally. And I sure want to make sure that our top priority is targeting those that we know are going to come here and conduct criminal activities. And so we need to continue doing everything we can to apprehend every single one of them, provide them with a consequence in the form of a prosecution, and then get them delivered back to another country as quick as possible.
Now, when it comes to the facilities closing down across the southern border, those soft-sided processing facilities, I know you only have about 3 minutes here, Chief. What does that look like for the hundreds of processing coordinators that were surged down here as well? From what I understand, they don't have arrest authority. What's happening with those individuals, and how can they be utilized as a force multiplier down here?
And so the Border Patrol processing coordinators are a part of the Border Patrol family. And so as we have gotten out of mass processing, because once again, the administration's given us the ability to provide consequences and get this border under control, so that's a great thing. We are going to continue to lean forward in adjusting their duties and their authorities to ensure that we can get the most out of them and they get the most opportunities out of the Border Patrol as well.
Now, obviously, you guys need to hire some staff. We've got thousands of people under the Bush administration that were hired, that were up for retirement. I know the polygraph test has been something that has been hard for people to get through, if you will. That's something that kind of takes out a lot of people, contenders. Is there any talk about adjusting the polygraph test or changing the process to become a Border Patrol agent so that you can hire more individuals?
As far as, hiring Border Patrol, as I talked about earlier, we absolutely need to rebuild those resources, right? And so not only do we need to hire more, right, but, and you're absolutely correct, we need to focus on retention. So one of my biggest priorities is the retention. How do we continue to retain good officers? I think the first and foremost reason why we can we're going to be able to retain these agents is they're getting to go be agents again. They're actually doing their job. I just spent the entire week last week going from San Diego, California, all the way to Tucson, Arizona. I did over 13 pre-shift musters, and the morale is as high as I've seen it in a long time. And the number one reason why morale is high is because agents are being allowed to go do their job, which is law enforcement, right? It's make arrest and provide consequences. So in addition to building up that morale, which is going to be great for our retention, we also are focusing heavily on our recruiting efforts. And we're going to be recruiting very heavily because, as you're aware, we're several thousand agents below what our congressionally mandated number is, and we're going to push hard to get those back up. So I think it's a combination of, folks in our workforce, getting that morale back up, building up our retention efforts while also recruiting. So I think as long as we're recruiting and working on retention together, we'll get to the number we need to be and get those resources built back up.
But are you going to change the polygraph, sir?
The polygraph is a law, and so the U.S. Border Patrol has to comply with those laws. We'll continue to comply with those laws. What we are doing is looking at ensuring that it's applied equally as it's applied toward other federal agencies who seem to have a higher pass rate than the U.S. Border Patrol.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chief. I appreciate it. We'll be following up if you need to add anything else. I appreciate your time today. Thank you, and God bless.